Thank you, David. We're hugely grateful to you and ABC News for cutting you loose from the Pacific Time Zone newscast tonight to serve as our Master of Ceremonies. I'm impressed that even after running across town to get here, as I was sitting over there next to you, I noticed that your on-camera makeup is intact. In fact, I really couldn't help but notice you have the perfect smoky eye. But those of you who watch World News tonight know that David Muir is more than just nice to look at. With David in the anchor chair, ABC has in fact vaulted to a consistent lead in the ratings race, and David has won multiple Emmys and Edward R. Murrow Awards. We're honored to count him among the First Amendment crusaders here tonight. In fact, it was Edward R. Murrow who said this in 1954: "The only thing that counts is the right to know, to speak, to think. That and the sanctity of the courts. Otherwise, it's not America." That, my friends, tidily sums up the mission of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. As we recommit to that mission tonight, I want to welcome and thank all of you. Freedom of the Press Awards dinner is the highlight of our calendar. It enables us to both help fund the essential work of the Reporters Committee in protecting the rights of journalists and to honor those colleagues who have been exceptional in exercising those rights. This year will be one of our most successful in both regards, and for that we owe a special thank you to our dinner chairs: Don Baer, Global Chairman of Burson, Cohn & Wolfe and Chair of the PBS Board of Directors; John Herman, Senior Advisor for Lincoln International and former President of the NPR Foundation; Paula Kerger, President and CEO of PBS; Arthur Sulzberger Jr., Chairman of the New York Times Company. I also want to thank my fellow members of the steering committee, which is what we call our board of directors at the Reporters Committee. Their names are in your program. They include some of the finest, busiest journalism educators, and First Amendment attorneys in America, yet they give generously of their time and intellect to this righteous cause. Will all of you please stand and be recognized? And of course, I want to thank our outstanding Executive Director, Bruce Brown, and the Reporters Committee staff. Will all of you please stand? Yes, we at the Reporters Committee have been quite busy since we met in this ballroom a year ago. Never in our careers have journalists' rights, and by extension, American citizens' rights, been more brazenly threatened. The most obvious of those threats comes, of course, from the current resident of the White House, who in 6 a.m. Twitter tantrums refers to us as enemies of the people, ridicules some of our most important and most healthy news institutions as failing, and labels any reporting he doesn't like as fake news. I hasten to remind you, though, that the man who last lived at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue was himself no champion for press freedom, as he too threatened to jail journalists and went so far as to seize their phone records. Just today, an AP reporter was physically removed from a meeting of the Environmental Protection Agency. The threats to press freedom extend far beyond the Beltway, however. In state houses, city halls, county courthouses, police stations across America, emboldened local and state officials of both major political parties are raucously joining this war on journalism. Reporters and photographers covering protests and marches are arrested by local police simply for doing their jobs. Public records and data sets are illegally withheld from journalists. Local reporters are increasingly subpoenaed by prosecutors to reveal their confidential sources. Elected officials at all levels, taking their cues from the chief executive, refuse to take questions from journalists, communicating instead through direct channels of propaganda. Not long ago, most of us took as a matter of faith that the freedoms granted by the founders and reinforced by decades of case law were secure. We now see otherwise. This was, of course, the first nation on earth to define and embrace press freedom in its constitution. But today, according to Reporters Without Borders, 44 countries provide more protection for the rights of journalists than the United States does. 44. Above us, the countries above us include Latvia, Lithuania, Chile, Romania, and Burkina Faso. Perhaps most frighteningly, much of the public does not seem to care. Polls consistently show an erosion of public support for the First Amendment and for the rights of journalists. So the challenge for the Reporters Committee is starkly clear. With your help, we're rising to that challenge. We provide a 24/7, 365 legal defense hotline for journalists and for attorneys. We represent journalists and news organizations pro bono in pivotal cases involving press freedom around the country. We provide training to newsrooms, and through fellowships and internships, we are preparing the next generation of media lawyers. The other side of that challenge, journalists, is yours. The best way to protect your rights is to exercise them vigorously. The best way to persuade the public that the work we do matters is to do work that truly matters. Over the past year, courageous, meticulous reporters and editors, including several of the people in this room, trained a searing spotlight, first on Hollywood, then on New York, then on Washington, then on Alabama, then on Albany. In doing so, they changed the future for my daughters and for millions of women in this country and around the world. We'll be honoring one of those editors here tonight, along with two other journalists whose work stands as testimony to the power of reporting and storytelling that matters. First, though, we want to recognize a woman who is still early in her career, but is proving a remarkable warrior in this defense of press freedom. She is the first winner of our new Rising Star Award, the Vice President of Legal and Associate General Counsel of BuzzFeed, Nabiha Syed.